All my years from middle school all the way to I graduated, I was high as a kite. I was stoned out of my mind every day. That was my goal, unfortunately, was to get high. My name is Johnny Alcaraz, and this is my story. Growing up, I was raised with my mom and my stepdad. As far as I can remember, he's been in my life since I was 2 years old. He's actually the one who raised me, showed me how to, throw the ball around. He's the one that went to all my school conferences when I got in trouble at school. So he's the one that raised me. I had a close relationship with my dad as well. I would go see him like on the weekends, every other weekend. They used to live in Long Beach, and then they moved to the desert. But the culture was there was a lot of parties, and in these parties where it was everyone's drinking, everyone's having a good time, but people start fighting, and people are drunk, and they're just being crazy. My neighbor, he dropped a cigarette. And so I'm 9 years old. I look around. I say, I'm gonna go for it. So I grabbed that cigarette and I finished it off. And I was 9 years old when I smoked my first cigarette. I remember I got sick after that. Like I got really bad, like my asthma. I had bad asthma, and I guess that I should have took that as a sign, like, hey man, you shouldn't smoke. But that didn't work. So I started smoking weed at 12 years old. That was the first time I tried it, was when I was 12. And of course, when you first smoke it, it's like, oh, it's it makes you feel good, it makes you laugh, everyone's having a good time, right? You're hungry. But the reality is weed is in my case, it's a gateway drug. People will say, well, no, it's not. Well, for me, it was a gateway drug. And for hundreds of people that I personally know, it was a gateway drug. So 13, I'm getting high every day, right? I'm getting high. My lunch money, instead of buying lunch, I'm buying weed. I start selling weed, just to get free weed, Yeah, and then I, by the age of 14, I start to drink more. I'm drinking like on the weekends, but I'm smoking weed every day, high as a kite. To be honest, all my years from middle school, from 7th grade, all the way to I graduated, I was high as a kite. I was stoned out of my mind every day. That was my goal, unfortunately, was to get high. We started to experiment with other drugs. Started, smoking P-Dogs, which is, crack mixed with weed. Started doing speed, so I would drink, me and my friends, we drink and we get so drunk, and then, we say, well, here, do a line of this, it'll give you energy, and then you can drink more. And so that's how I was introduced to me, and I said, oh man, that sounds cool. So next thing you know, I'm doing speed to wake up, weekend warrior. And so now I'm doing weed, speed, crack, alcohol. And so at this point, I'm just addicted. I'm fully addicted to drugs. I do not remember a lot of my school years from 6th grade to when I graduated. The sad thing is those years, my only goal in life wasn't what college I'm gonna go to, what do I wanna be when I grow up. My goal was, okay, I wanna get high. Like, okay, let's get high. How high can I get? How much weed can I smoke in a day? Right? How many P-Dogs can I smoke in a day? That was my goal. How many beers can I drink in one day? That was my goal, my goals as a teenager. As I was growing up and I was going to school from, especially when I was about 13 and up, my day was, I had a wake and bake. And wake and bake means you start your day off with a joint or getting high, smoking some weed. I wouldn't start my day until I got high. Throughout the day, if I went to school, get with my friends on the way to school, we're getting high. Sometimes we would get high in school, and then obviously on the way home from school, we're getting high. So we were just getting high, and then after school, we're getting high. When I was 14, which was my 9th grade year, I was going to Jordan High School in Long Beach. I got kicked out of there. I got kicked out for insinuating a riot. I remember the principal said, hey, I don't want you in my school. A couple months later, I started going to Paramount High for the first time. And I started doing good at Paramount High. I started playing basketball. The whole time I'm getting high. I'm playing basketball, I'm playing baseball for the school. You know, I'm starting to get a little bit better grades, but I'm still getting high every day. I'm fighting. I'm just, you know, I'm just out of control at this point. Now I'm 15, I'm carrying a gun. I'm getting high. My mom says, hey, you're gonna move with your dad. I moved to Desert Hot Springs for the next 5 years. I lived in the desert. Total culture shock, for real. You know, moving to the desert was good for me, for the fact that all my cousin Ed's friends, they all partied and they all, you know, but they all did good in school. And so actually for the first time in my life, I actually started getting like A's and B's and C's, and which was, for me, I was patting myself on the back because I didn't know I could do that, right? But that was like, I think the first time I ever, I realized that if I actually apply myself and I put effort into something, that it can get done. So actually for the first time, I was actually doing good in school. I was actually patting myself on the back. I said, man, hey, you do got some intelligence, Johnny. But even though I was doing well in school, I was getting A's and B's and C's, which is a big accomplishment for me, right? I was still addicted. I was still getting high every day. Driving to school with my buddy Jake, and we had to have a blunt rolled up on the way to school. Driving to school, it took us about a 20-minute drive. We're getting high, we're hotboxing on the way to school. So now I'm messing with acid and mushrooms and ecstasy. Drinking will lead you to bad decisions, right? People who say that's not true, that's a lie, because I've made so many bad decisions when I was drunk. And one of the bad decisions landed me in juvenile hall. So my charges were 3 counts of assault and battery, assault with a deadly weapon. And it's my first time being arrested. The public defender comes in and he says, hey, want to plea you out. The best I can do for you is 4 years youth authority. And I said, what? It's my first offense. And my mom says, oh no, we're gonna get you a lawyer. A bunch of my family members pitched in and they got me a lawyer. My lawyer comes in and he says, we're gonna get you 45 days and time served. So I just did 45 days. So after I got out of juvenile hall, I think it was a month before I was 18. My real good friend, Jake, his dad, his name was Wayne Pratt. I was always at their house. You know, he even gave me a key and he goes, hey, if we're not home, you come in, you make yourself something to eat. He was in the Navy before, and he would always tell me, so Johnny, what are you gonna, he would ask me, what are you gonna do? What do you wanna do with your life? You know, what are you gonna do? And one thing I always knew that I lacked was self-discipline. I was thinking, hey, the Navy doesn't sound like a bad idea. You know, they'll teach me self-discipline and I get to travel and see the world. So I wanted to go to the Navy, but I didn't have a high school diploma and I was behind on credits. And so what Uncle Wayne did for me, he had a friend who ran a private Christian school. It was actually a Messianic Jewish school. So when I got out of jail, or I got out of juvenile hall, I'm sorry, Uncle Wayne said, I'm gonna pay for you to go to this private school so you can get your diploma so you can go to the Navy. And he passed away before he got to see me graduate. But I graduated. I didn't go to the Navy because around that time, I even met with the recruiter and everything, but I didn't go to the Navy because about that time my grandfather got sick. He got diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so at this point, I'm coming back and forth to Paramount, you know, just to be with the family. You know, my grandfather, he was a big part of my life. He showed me how I got a lot of his traits: hard worker, loves to help people. So now here's this man that growing up I was always with my grandparents. Growing up, that was like my refuge. I used to see him, remember, as a strong man, and now I see what cancer is doing to him. He's dying. And so I'm going back and forth. He passes away from cancer after he battled for years. And I decided, okay, I'm gonna move in with my grandmother because now she's all by herself. I'm gonna move in with her so I can help her out, take care of her. And the funny thing is, I move in with my grandma, she ends up taking care of me. If you have a Hispanic grandmother, you already know, they spoil, especially, I'm the only grandson too, so I got spoiled, you know. I'm about 20 years old, almost 21. I moved back to Paramount. And it's like I never left, you know. I'm getting high, you know. I'm going through job after job. I can't hold a job. because my party life my addiction is out of control. I don't know why I'm strapped up. I'm driving around with a gun. It's funny, your addictions will take you to places that you look back, you're like, why did I do that? I remember going to Compton to score dope at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, right? Driving, me and my cousin, just going on little missions like that. From like the age of 21 to 26, I just began to pretty much do speed. I got to the point where I said, you know what, like, I don't even want to go down no more. I just want to stay up. And so now I'm getting high. I'm hitting the pookie, as they call it. I'm up for 3-4 days a week at a time, not eating, not sleeping, just tweaked out. At this point, I'm doing about an 8-ball every other day. Life is going nowhere. All I'm living for is to get high. All I'm working for is to get high. As far as I can remember, I have these aunts, my grandma's sisters. They were all Christian, and I love my Tia Angie. She used to take me to church with her. She was a godly woman, and they used to take me to church with her as a little kid. And so I would see the preaching, I would see the dancing, the speaking in tongues. It didn't freak me out. And she used to pray for me all the time, my Tia Angie, because I was always at her house, because I looked up to her sons, which are my uncles. Growing up, I also had another aunt, my Tia Nina. She would catch me at a family party. I'd be drinking, I'd be high, and she would always pray for me. And I never turned down prayer, never did, because I didn't want to be disrespectful. But there's one time I remember I was so disrespectful to my Tia Nina. One time she started saying, Johnny, if you don't change your life the way that you're living, you're gonna go to hell. And some people might say that that's mean, but that's truth. And I remember telling her, well, at least I won't need a lighter in hell. And that's kind of where my state of mind was back then, So there was always my Christian aunts who were trying to get a hold of me. God was using them. When I was 23, I met my future wife, Jennifer. Now the funny thing is, when I first met her, we didn't plan on getting. I mean, who would have known we were gonna get married, right? Like, that wasn't the goal. I remember telling her after we hung out, I said, I don't want a girlfriend. I'm not looking for a relationship. She felt the same way. One of the main things that we had in common was that we were both drug addicts. We were both addicted to speed at the time. I didn't know when I first met her that she was addicted to speed, and she didn't know that I was addicted to speed. But as we hung out for that first time, and we come to find out, hey, we both like to do speed. And so for the next 4 years, we're getting tweaked out together. 4 years, me and Jennifer we're doing speed every day. Every day we're doing speed. We're getting high together. And then there was just a point where I just didn't want to do it no more. I was just tired. I was tired of it. I was just tired. I mean, physically, because I didn't sleep at all during those 4 or 5 years. But I was just tired of it. My sister had gotten pregnant with my nephew. And then, at the time Jennifer had gotten pregnant, I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't want my nephew or my kid to have a drug addict, as a role model, because I was not a role model at all. When I told Jennifer, like, I didn't want to do speed no more, like, I'm done with it, she was kind of hesitant at first, because we were addicted. We've been doing this for so many years. And so we both agreed, and the next, for her, about probably 2 weeks. For me, it was probably longer. All I would do was sleep. So I would go to work, I would get home, and I would sleep. And there would be times where I wouldn't even eat, or I wouldn't even take a shower, because my body was so weird that I would just sleep from 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I got home till 5 in the morning. Nothing woke me up. My grandma probably thought I was dead. I did that for probably about a month of just withdrawal. Just my body was just like, what are you doing to me? And so I dropped doing speed, but now I picked up drinking heavily. Now I'm drinking about a 12-pack a day. I get home from work, boom, I'm drinking beers. Jennifer, she came to me one day. She was living at my mom's. I was living at my grandma's, and she said, hey, what are we gonna do? Like, do you plan on living with your grandmother the rest of your life? And I didn't like when she was telling me this, because I had it comfortable at my grandma's. I didn't really have to pay no bills. I paid my bills. I had, all this money, and not all this money, but I had money, And so finally I said, okay, we'll move out, we'll get our own place. It was exciting though, because we finally got our own place. It was my first time. I was 26 and I'm finally moving out of my house for the first time. I remember saying, hey, you wanna get married? We're living together. You know, just like that. No one on my knee, no romantic, dinner. And she was like, yeah, sure. Just like that. October 20th, we got married. One is I didn't know how to be a husband. I was very selfish. I would get home from work and I would just run straight to the fridge. It was all about me. I needed to get my beers in, right? It's all about how Johnny feels. And the reality is I would neglect my wife. I wouldn't pay attention to her. I wouldn't take her to dinner. I wouldn't buy her flowers. None of that. I was just, I neglected her. She would be so mad at me because I would get so drunk. So we're married about a year, 6 months, and Jennifer wants to start going to church. She has a lot of her family was going to Cottonwood, and I did not want to go. Right? I did not want to go. I liked what I was doing. I liked drinking and all that stuff. There was times I would just go just to shut her up, right? And that's how I would think of it back then. I know it sounds messed up now, but just to keep her quiet, just to say, look, I went with you, now leave me alone. I remember this one time we went to Calvary Chapel in Downey, and Jeff Johnson was preaching, and he was preaching on repentance and hell, and I remember I did not like him. I did not like what he was saying. I had this anger inside of me that was just like, I wanted to run out of that building. One of my neighbors, one of my friends, his wife played softball, and they started this softball team, and they asked me if I wanted to play. I said, yeah, I could play a little. We had this new player come. His name was Albert Guerrero, and I didn't know at the time, but he was from Paramount, right? And we know a lot of the same people. Before the game, I'm having my drinks, I'm drinking my beers, and I remember offering him a beer, and I said, hey man, you want a beer? And he goes, I don't drink. And it's funny because the look that people give me when I tell them I don't drink is the same look I gave him, kind of like what do you mean you don't drink? What's wrong with this guy? And he said, no man, I don't drink. And I asked him, and it was a sincere question. I said, how do you do it? He goes, Jesus. And so I told him, oh yeah, well, what church do you go to? He goes, oh, I go to Praise Chapel Paramount. I go, really? I go, my aunt goes there, my tia Lupe. She goes to Praise Chapel Paramount. He goes, oh man. He goes, hey man, and then he invites me. He goes, when are you gonna come down? Throughout my life, it seems like God was always trying to get my attention. I think if you look hard enough, you'll see that God is trying to get your attention. Even through your addiction, through your struggles, through your trials, God is a lot closer than you think. There was times I remember crying out to God and saying, why? I would blame God. Why did you make me this way? Why did you make me with these addictions? Why can't I stop? Why can't I stop? And I remember there were times where I would try to stop, and it would only last a day or two. I'm sitting in my living room, and I don't have any beer. I have a bottle of liquor underneath my cabinet, and I said, I'm gonna have me a couple drinks. And I remember Jen pouring down my bottle, and she's like, for months she's been telling me, all you do is drink, all you want to do is drink, you don't do nothing, you just want to go to work and drink. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So she pours my bottle down the sink, and I'm so mad because I was gonna get drunk. I was gonna drink. And she goes in the room, and I remember sitting in my living room, and I'm thinking like, man, what the heck I'm tired of this. I'm tired. And it's funny because I remember, and then all of a sudden church popped into my head, and it was Wednesday. And I told Jennifer, I said, I'll be back, I'm gonna go to church. She said, yeah, right. She didn't believe me. I came to Praise Chapel, and it's funny because as soon as I walked through those doors, it was something I never felt before. It's like kind of like the Lord was telling me, this is it. It's time. No more running. No more running. And Pastor Dave Hernandez was preaching that night. I've been in altar calls before, right? Other churches, and when the altar call would go up, I would just be like, whatever. But there was something different about this night. And as soon as the altar call, the call for salvation went up, man, my hand shot up quick, no hesitation. And I said, oh man. And I remember getting to the altar, and before I even get to kneel down, you have Angel Flores. He's a pastor now. He led me to the Lord. And that day, my life changed. It's funny because I tell people, it's like a supernatural, it's a supernatural thing, but there was a weight that I didn't know that I had that was lifted off of me. It was just amazing. I can't explain it. And it was just completely, it was amazing. And I remember I got home, I went home and I told Jennifer, hey, I gave my life to the Lord. And she said, we'll see. And it's funny because God will give you, he'll show you signs. He'll give you like warning signs sometimes, right? And God was trying to give me a warning sign on that Friday night, because that Friday night I went to Bible study. I went to, they call him Big Al, Albert Guerrero. I went to his Bible study, and it so happened, it's not a coincidence, that he was teaching that night on temptation. And so I listened to it. It's all foreign to me though. I don't know the Bible, right? I don't know none of this stuff. But it was God telling me, hey, you got to get ready. There's going to be temptations. So I remember going home, and all my buddies that my uncle, everyone that hangs out there, they're right there. It's Friday night. They're drinking, they're getting ready. And I was usually the guy that was there in the middle of that, getting it all, getting in the mix of it. And I'm walking in with the Bible, and they're like, hey, where were you at? Where are you coming from? I was like, oh, I just came from Bible study. They're like, what? So I remember I go upstairs, right? And instead of listening to that word that I just heard about temptation, I said, you know what? I can go back downstairs. And so then I go back downstairs, and I'm fighting it. There's a pool. Have a beer. And something's telling me no. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I have a beer. And that beer, I've never felt that before. I felt so bad when I was drinking that beer. I was like, what the heck? Why do I feel bad about this? I keep drinking. And then finally, after 9 or 10, next thing you know, we're going back to the liquor store at 1 a.m. Here I am. I just gave my life to Christ on Wednesday. God just talked to me about temptation, or Albert taught me about temptation. I didn't listen. I wake up in the morning. I have the worst hangover I've had a lot of hangovers. I've had one of the worst hangovers I've ever had. I'm using my shoe as a pillow. I have my shirt off. I'm missing a sock. I'm just like, what the heck? What did I do last night? It's like a movie. But I remember I was so hungover that I had to go to the store to get another beer to cure the hangover. And I remember we had to go. We were going to go to my sister-in-law's. They lived in Chino at the time, and so we jumped in the car. I couldn't drive because I was so hungover. Jennifer had to drive my truck. And I remember we're fighting. She's like, I thought you changed. I thought you gave your life to the Lord. I thought this, that. And I remember literally she's doing about 60, 70 miles an hour on the 60 freeway. And I'm like, well, I'll jump out. And she was like, go ahead. And I was like, man, I almost jumped out of the car. I felt so embarrassed. I felt so ashamed. But I tell you this, that was the last I ever drank. I stopped drinking, I stopped smoking, I stopped cussing. That is the power of God. Because it wasn't me. And I know it wasn't me because I used to try to do it before and I couldn't. When you first give your life to the Lord, a lot of times people have this thought that everything's going to be a cakewalk now. But it wasn't. Because you got to remember, I was living a certain way for so many years that I had to allow the Lord to begin to remove things out of my life. Remove anger, bitterness. I had to fight the addiction still, right? So at this point, there was even a point when we first, we were saved about 6 months. We've given our life to the Lord. So I got saved, and I think about a month later, sometime later, Jennifer gave her life to the Lord. But she wanted to see if it was real. She wanted to see if I was just playing church. And, my wife, she reads me really well. She knows me better than I know myself. And so she's seen that, hey, this guy is for real. This guy, he's going for it. And so she jumped on board. One time, I remember running to church. Because I just was excited about church. I just wanted to be in God's house. I just wanted to be with God's people. And when I first got saved, a lot of my family didn't understand it. They were like, why are you always at church? Why do you always want to be at church? And I was like, well, this is the place where God set me free. Why wouldn't I want to be here? We're getting involved in, ushering, children's ministry, whatever. I literally, whenever the doors are open, I'm here. Outreach, whatever. We get fully involved. It will be 11 years that both me and my wife have been serving the Lord. In that time, the Lord has shown me how, one, to love my wife, to honor my wife, to cherish my wife, to respect my wife. God really showed me how to become a husband, He showed me how to be a better man, be a better person, right? To live like Christ. So God restored all of that. All the brokenness, God restored all that. God began to open up doors for us to work with young adults, to work, just to work with people. At first I was like, man, Lord, like, why me? But God will use anybody. As long as you're willing to be used by God, He'll use you. God will take what the enemy meant for evil, and He'll use it for good. Because all the things that we've went through in the past, now we can impart into people and say, hey, there's hope. Don't give up on your marriage. Don't give up on your kid. Don't give up on that person that you think is so bound by whatever there is, because there is hope. Because me and my wife would both testify. We were both drug addicts. We were both down and out. But by the grace of God, God rescued us and He restored us. And not only did He restore us, but He uses us to impart into other people. It's a beautiful thing. God is good. He's so good. No matter how far along you've gone, God can heal. God can restore anything. God can take the broken and put it back together. Don't give up on that family member. Don't give up on that loved one who's battling the addiction. Pray for them, love them, invite them to church. Go out of your way for them. One of my favorite scriptures is Matthew 11:28, and it's Jesus' word. Jesus is speaking, and He says, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy-hearted, and I will give you rest." Jesus says, "Take my yoke, for my yoke is light." I want to encourage you, if you're watching this and you might be bound by some kind of addiction or whatever it may be, and you're saying, well, man, Jesus is the answer. He really is. He really is. Don't give up. Don't give up on your family member. Don't give up on that friend. Don't give up on yourself, because God loves you. You were created for purpose. You were created for a reason. And give your life to Jesus.